the MMA fortune teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller.
Quick PSA announcement today before we start the show. The MMA fortune teller's Instagram was taken down last week due to a copyright infraction against the UFC. They did not like the video I posted. It was a highlight video of Jessica Andrade. So lesson learned. I started a new Instagram page. It's the same name, MMA Fortune Teller, but now I have an underscore at the end of it. So luckily, we're already creeping up on 1,000 followers within 1 week. Although my other page had 3,000 followers and a lot of history posted, I will be posting a lot of the stuff that I have in the past along with new content, and we'll continue to grow the page. Thanks, guys. Now let's make some fucking money. What's up, you guys? The Teller here. Going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night 152, taking place in Rochester, New York. Pretty decent card. Got a couple fights here and there. You guys know the routine, though. Before we even get into that, we got to take a look back at last week's card, UFC 237. And I know you guys are saying, this guy is, he says the same thing every week. And you guys are right, because guess what I'm about to say? Another profitable weekend. Every weekend, man. We've been on a hot streak, man. I think I'm 9-1 in my last 10 fights. Just an amazing weekend. I went 3 for 3 on my bets. Overall, my full card picks were decent, but one thing I regretted was the Alexander Volkanovski Jose Aldo fight. Initially, my gut was telling me Alexander, and throughout the weeks before that fight card took place, I was kind of swayed to the Aldo side, being the fight was taking place in Brazil. But nevertheless, it was a fight that I wasn't putting $1 on, so to me, it's completely irrelevant. My 3 plays all came through. Props to Jessica Andrade. I mean, what a fucking beast that girl is. She's losing the beginning of that fight. I was a little nervous, I'm not going to lie. I was biting my nails, jumping up and down, watching the fight. And all of a sudden, she scoops Rose up, completely drops her on her neck, puts her out unconscious. It was an amazing knockout victory for Jessica Andrade. I mean, she's a true champ at this point. I was ecstatic about that. Other than that, I hit my other bet, Loreno Staropoli against Thiago Alves. That fight took place exactly how I thought it would. Loreno was just the younger, quicker fighter, more aggressive in there. Thiago Alves, man, he's past his prime. This guy's getting up there in age. It just, like I said, it played out exactly as I thought it would. Staropoli, he's not the greatest fighter, man. He's young. He has some improvements to still make. But in the right spot, you gotta jump on a fighter like him, and that was a perfect spot against the aging Thiago Alves. It wasn't a crazy bet, but I was getting it at good odds. It was a pick'em, basically a pick'em odds, minus 115 or so, whatever it was. So that came through nice, more money in the bank. And then, last but not least, I saw Warlley Alves, before the fight happened, I looked at the odds. He dropped all the way down to a minus 135. At one point, I believe he was almost, a minus 175 or something like that, 185 even. When I saw that, I had to jump on it. As I stated last week, on the show, Sergio Moraes, I'm not a big fan of his. He's a very lackadaisical type of fighter. Everyone talks, they rant and rave about his jiu-jitsu. You barely ever get to see him implement his jiu-jitsu game. He usually tries to stand on the feet and throws these big, overwhelming hooks that are telegraphed. And if he doesn't hit you and put you out, he usually gets outpointed. And then once he starts losing the fight, he starts to get a little bit annoyed, and his body language looks bad for the judges. And so that was another fight that I jumped on, and I hit that too. So overall, just a great card, man. When you go 3 for 3 and you see the money coming in your account, gotta love it, man. So, and that's all good, but let's keep the winnings going. We got to make some money on this upcoming card. The way this world works, it's all about what you've done for me lately. So we don't want to have a bad card here. UFC Fight Night 152. I see a few different spots where we can make some money. I've already posted one of my plays on my Instagram. I'm about to be posting my other play right after I post this video. So I have 2 plays as of now, and I'm eyeing a third possible play. And I'll get to those plays as we move through the card. But we'll start off with the first fight of the night. We got Julio Arce taking on Julian Erosa. Okay, in regards to this fight, the first thing that I'm going to speak on is where the line is at right now. Because in my opinion, it's getting a little ridiculous with some of these lines. Julio Arce is a minus 800. I just don't see how he's a minus 800. I mean, that's you got to lay out a crazy amount of money to make anything. In the fight game, it just doesn't make sense because Julian Erosa has finished, decent fighters before. I mean, this guy knocked out Jamal Emmers on Dana White's Contender Show. Erosa is a capable fighter. Do I think Julian Erosa is the best of fighters? No. I mean, he has a record 22-7. He's well-rounded. He has a funky style. He does keep his hands down, which I don't like, and he also has problems with his chin. So, that doesn't go for a good mixture, If he gets hit in the chin, he's going out. But, Julio Arce, he's a well-rounded fighter. He has jiu-jitsu, good striking. He pushes a solid pace. I do have Arce winning this fight. Like I said, I do not agree with this line, and I think that you can't touch Arce at all. I wouldn't parlay him with anything. If anything, if you wanted to have action on this fight, I feel like you have to go the Erosa route. Put maybe a little bit of money on him. Hope he shows up. Erosa's coming off a tough loss in his last fight, but, Grant Dawson, that guy's a beast. I'm going to be getting to him later. He's fighting later on the card. That guy is a beast with his takedowns. So, and, there was a couple moments where Erosa looked decent. He did stuff a few takedowns, very few. And, he was throwing some elbows and he was throwing some uppercuts, trying to get a stoppage. But, it wasn't happening with Grant because Grant's just a straight tank. But, I think, Erosa, he's a funky dude. I've been watching him for quite a while. He was on the Ultimate Fighter show. But, yeah, you can't touch lines like that with a fighter like that. Julio Arce, if you're taking a minus 800, it needs to be like a Valentina Shevchenko against Jessica Ai, where it's a wrap. That fight's already over before that fight even started. This fight, I'm not 100% that this fight is is going to go Arce's way. But he should win this fight. He's the better fighter. So, expect Arce to win this fight. But, if I was you guys, just stay away from this fight. All right, up next, we got the crafty veteran, Zak Cummings, taking on Trevin Giles. This guy, Giles, is relatively a newcomer to the UFC game. He's had 2 fights already, so he's going into his 3rd UFC fight. The guys that he's beat really weren't anything. His most notable win that he has on his resume was against Ryan Spann. That was an LFA. That was a split decision. It was a close fight. But, I'm high on Ryan Spann. That guy's a good fighter. You guys saw what he did last week. Took out Nogueira over there in Brazil. He's a good fighter. So, other than that, though, not a lot of big names on this guy Giles' resume. But, he's an athletic dude. He's 26 years old. He definitely has potential. But now he's taking a guy on, Zak Cummings. This guy, Zak he's a crafty vet, as I said. The problem with Cummings, in my opinion, is if he's fighting any type of B-level fighter and above, he continuously loses those types of fights. The only fights he tends to win are against like C-level, C-D-level type fighters. The Trevor Smiths, Nathan Coy, Alexander Yokolov, Nicholas Dalby, Dominic Steels. When he fights guys like that, he comes through. He's very well-rounded. He could take a shot. He has good jiu-jitsu, good wrestling. He's kind of a boring fighter to watch, but, he'll give you a run for your money. He's well-rounded, as I said, so, he knows what he's doing in there. But, again, once he fights guys like, Santiago Ponzinibbio, Gunnar Nelson, Prazeres, those guys, he can't beat those types of guys, So I believe this fight's taking place at light heavyweight, middleweight. So, he's went up and down before when it came to these divisions. So we'll see how he does back up at middleweight. But I just think that Trevin Giles is going to be a little bit quicker than him. I think he's going to be more athletic. And I think at this point, Zak Cummings hitting 34 years old. I think the younger fighter in Giles, I think he has more potential to win this fight. Now, I wouldn't be shocked in the least bit if Zak Cummings, if he comes through, As I said, the crafty vet, if he pulls a couple different tricks out of his sleeve and is able to pull off a decision, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't expect Cummings to finish this fight at all, but definitely the possibility to win a decision. Giles has potential to win this fight a couple different ways. He likes to finish fights a lot, or, maybe he'll just be the quicker fighter and he'll win a decision himself. So this is a fight that I'm not going to be touching either, so... if anyone is looking to play this, let me know who you guys are leaning towards. I would love to hear it. Comment below, but I won't be touching this fight. All right, up next, we got Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts taking on Michelle Pereira. This should be an interesting fight. From the tape I was able to find on Michelle, this guy looks to be a wild fighter. So, and Danny Roberts is willing to engage in crazy fights himself. And Roberts is a guy that has polished striking. He has one of the best striking coaches in the world in Henry Hooft. So he definitely, his striking is very polished, but, a lot of times he's willing to throw caution to the wind and engage in brawls and sloppy, crazy fights. So I would not be surprised if this fight turns out to be like one of those. And if it does, I think that's a bad option for Danny, because I think if Danny plays this fight very carefully and just uses his striking from the outside, I think he'll pick Michelle apart. I think he could knock him out in the feet. I really don't want to see Danny make this into a wild brawl, because then, you know what? Who's to say who's going to win this fight? You've seen Roberts drop the ball like that a couple times. And his last fight against Claudio Henrique da Silva was a hell of a fighter. That fight started getting a little crazy. And, Danny was in the position to win that fight, and he made one mistake, got armbarred. He's engaged in some crazy brawls. Mike Perry, Nordin Talab, ended up getting knocked out in both of those fights. So, but Danny Roberts is a good fighter. Like I said, I like his striking. I like his heart. I like his cardio. He actually impressed me with his heart and cardio. Initially, when he started his career, I didn't think that that he would be the type of fighter that would really dig deep. I thought he was more of a front runner, but he showed to be a better fighter. But this guy Pereira, 21-9, and he's young too. You got to be careful with fighters like this. He's only 25 years old. He has some size to him. He's been fighting very, very shitty competition, in my opinion, and he's had some losses to complete no-names. But sometimes you got to be careful. You never know, with a guy like this. He's young. Maybe his game's still improving. But, in my opinion, got to go with Danny Roberts. I do not have a play on this guy as of yet, but I'm looking into a couple different little details, ironing some things out. But I think Danny Roberts is going to get this victory here. So, yeah, I got Danny Roberts to win this fight. Look who we got up next. We got Patrick Cummings taking on Ed Short Fuse Herman. I guess old Patrick Durkin put down his mountain bike down for a little bit and stepping back into the octagon. This guy is always on Instagram fucking trailing the world. Shout out to Patrick, though. He's a tough dude. You guys all know his story, man. Took on his first UFC fight. Took it on short notice against Daniel Cormier. Came up short in that fight. And, ever since then, he's been about, a 50-50 type fighter. It's actually been a little rough for him as of recently, too. He's won 2 out of his last 6 fights. But, he's losing to, the typical names up there at the top of the light heavyweight division. Not the greatest of fighters, but, it's a very shallow weight class. So, and then we got Ed Herman. Ed Herman is a guy that, in my opinion, he's supposed to be at middleweight. But at this point, I guess it doesn't really matter because he's 38 years old as well. And the only reason why he's getting fights in the UFC is because, he's somewhat entertaining. He's going to sit there. He's going to swing for the fences. He'll take a shot. And he's not looking to go on a title run or anything like that. So no real reason for him to make the weight cut. But, Ed Herman, he was a G back in the day, man. Fought in Strikeforce, of course, UFC, back and forth. 185er, well-rounded. He runs his own training facility over there in Colorado, I believe. It's a cool dude, man. But I think this fight's actually going to be an entertaining fight. I think it's going to be not the most skilled type of fight, but it's going to be an entertaining fight. These guys are going to be slow. They're going to swing for the fences. And I believe this is Patrick's fight to win. I think Patrick, he has the avenue where he can take Herman down. As the fight goes on, Herman will get tired. I think Patrick will be able to get takedowns. And then on the feet, they're basically mirror images. They're going to sit there. I don't think either one of them is going to finish each other. I think they're going to just, bloody each other up, sit there and smash each other in the forehead. And then I think Patrick will mix in a couple takedowns. And honestly, I think even Patrick will get the best, maybe actually, slight edge on the feet, even if it does end up just staying in the feet. I think it's his fight to win either way this thing goes. So yeah, I'll be happy to see Patty Boy get a victory in there. So this will not be a fight that I will be touching, but yeah, let's get Patty Boy, let's get that victory. Let's go. All right, keeping it moving. Up next, we got Desmond the Predator Green taking on Charles Air Jourdain. I guess he's like the Canadian Michael Jordan over there. I don't really care for this fight whatsoever. This is another fight. The line is a complete joke. Desmond Green, he's creeping up a minus 800 himself, I believe, at this point. Like minus 750, minus 900 on Bovada. I mean, are you kidding me? This guy, Desmond Green, is one of the most overrated fighters I've seen in the UFC. And one of the most boring fighters I've seen. He's coming off a TKO victory against Ross Pearson. Ross Pearson's way over the hill. He's just, I don't know. I'm not a fan of this guy. I don't like watching him fight. I don't know why they even continuously give him fights like this. But this guy, Charles Jourdain, from the footage I was able to see, he has decent hands. He has some power. He has a lot of fight finishing ability. Of course I favor Desmond Green to win this fight, but I would never, ever touch him at these odds. I wouldn't even have him in any parlays, even in the minus 600-700s. You can't trust this guy. It's going to be a very close fight. A lot of his wins even come down to split decisions, for the most part. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is a fight that ends up being very close. It goes to the judges' scorecards. It's not worth it. So, I guess. But let's go. We'll take Desmond Green. But, I don't know. I'm probably going to take a little break when this fight comes on. I might not even watch it, so. All right, well, if I do end up taking that break, I will definitely be back for this fight. This is probably my most anticipated fight on the card, at least, one of them. We got Grant Dawson taking on Michael Trizano, two blue-chip prospects. Very high on both of these guys, man. They're young. These are very good fighters. I'm more high on Grant Dawson, though. I think Grant, the Prophet Dawson, I think this dude is a stud, 25 years old. This guy had scholarships to all types of colleges for wrestling, ended up turning that down to pursue an MMA career, which is very, very impressive to me. And not to mention his MMA wrestling that he implements in the cage is it's very serious, man. This guy's the real deal. And you saw what he did to Julian Erosa in his last fight, man. Just as I was talking about that earlier, just continuously took him down. I mean, the pressure that he imposed was ridiculous. And, I heard different people talk about his cardio. I mean, there was maybe like a 20-second window in that fight where he looked like he was, a little out of breath and slowing down. But he revved it right into the next gear after those 20 seconds. He got his second win and continuously pressured him. And how can you blame a guy like that, for looking a little winded for, a small window when you're pushing a pace like he does? Unless you're a robot, it's impossible. I mean, that's just, you can't move the way he moves without looking a little bit out of breath for a minute. So this guy is a beast, like I said. Michael Trizano, 8-0, the tough veteran. He's a good fighter, man. But a lot of his fights end up being pretty close. He's more of a point type of fighter. Tiger Showman fighter. I mean, he's a good dude. He's a good fighter. But I just think that you have to jump on Grant Dawson in a position like this. I don't know why. The line opened up with Grant Dawson as like a plus 140, plus 135. That's what I got him at. So this is one of my plays. I got him at a plus 135. I don't see what you guys were seeing with that because, in my opinion, Grant Dawson has to be the favorite in this fight. Okay, it can be close, but you got to have Dawson at least a minus 120, 130. When you have the better wrestler and a guy that pushes a pace like that, that gives you such an edge in these fights, man. He's going to get the takedowns. And Trizano is a guy that's been taken down in a lot of his fights. It's not like he has very good takedown defense and then he's going to be picking Grant apart. And, Grant's 25 years old, so, don't be surprised when his striking continuously gets better and gets better. Like I said, this is a guy, he left the wrestling route to pursue MMA. So don't think that this guy is just training his wrestling. This guy is training all aspects of mixed martial arts, and I think you're going to start to see that fight to fight. So, I'm high on this guy, Grant Dawson, and I might look to play this guy moving forward quite a bit, especially in the right matchups. But this is going to be a test for him. Michael Trizano is a good fighter, so this is definitely it's a good test for him. Let's see if he passes the test, man. I hope he does. So I'll put some more money in my pocket. But again, when you're getting him at plus 135 underdog odds, I think it's a no-brainer. You have to roll the dice on a fight like this regardless. So I probably would have taken Grant even if it was, up to a pick'em fight, even a slight edge as a favorite. I probably still would have rolled the dice on this fight. I like this guy Grant a lot, so definitely will be paying close attention when this fight takes place. All right, up next, we got some chicks throwing down. We got the little cutie Aspen Ladd taking on Sijara Eubanks. These chicks already threw down back in 2017, and Ladd was the victor. She's 7-0, very young too. At this point, she's 24 years old. One thing I always say, man, with those young fighters, I'll continuously say that too. Every time they step into the octagon, they're going to be better fighters. She already beat Eubanks in her previous fight, where she was even more of a green fighter. And Eubanks was, at the time, she was already still 32 years old, probably in her prime. So, Eubanks has good jiu-jitsu, and she's been practicing jiu-jitsu for a long time. So, I don't see Eubanks necessarily becoming a better fighter. I don't see her making strides in her game to cover that edge from her last loss against Ladd. I think, if anything, Ladd is going to get better, and she's going to even win this fight more convincingly. I don't necessarily think that Ladd's going to take Eubanks out like she does a lot of the other chicks. I don't think she's going to, take her down, mount her, take her back, and smash her out. I could see her just winning this fight similarly that she did in the last fight, just a little bit more convincingly. She'll get the better of the exchanges on the feet, hold her against the cage, just, kind of pressure Eubanks back. And I think she'll pull this fight off. As far as betting-wise goes, I don't really like where the line's at. It's about -320 at this point. It's not my type of play, especially when it comes to women MMA fighters. Sometimes you can't trust them. I do think Ladd gets this win, but I won't be touching it. I'm not going to hate on you guys, for those of you guys that do put some money on her. But, it's not for me. I'll be pulling for you guys that got money on her to win the fight. All right, moving on to the next fight, we got Davi Ramos taking on Austin Hubert. I'm high on this guy, Davi Ramos. Man, this guy is an excellent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. His striking is looking great. Every time he steps in the octagon, man, it's looking better and better. Throws power. He's aggressive. He has good fighter IQ. His last loss that he had was against Sergio Moraes. That was a fight that he took on short notice up a weight class. So, don't look too much into that. That was his UFC debut as well. Ever since that fight, 3 finishes in a row, all submissions, against tough dudes, Nick Hine, Chris Grutzmacher, John Gunther, not the best of fighters. I actually made a bunch of money on that fight too. I parlayed it. That was one of the most guaranteed fights I've seen in forever when he submitted John Gunther. Just stylistically, it was just free money because Gunther he's just not going to finish you on the feet like that. So that was a nice little hit, just reminiscing on that. But, back to Ramos. Ramos he's a solid dude. And I think his mixed martial arts game is getting better every time he steps in there. This guy, Austin Hubert, I watched tape on him. I was not impressed whatsoever. His striking is very elementary, very telegraphed, slow, sloppy. And it's funny because you look at his record 10-2, and I looked at some of the guys that he's defeated, and it's weird. A lot of these guys have decent records, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on with this guy, because the footage I saw, I watched his loss against Eric Wisely. He looked horrendous. If that fighter steps into the octagon with Davi Ramos he's taking him out. I don't even care if it hits the mat. I'm not even talking about as far as jiu-jitsu goes. I think Davi Ramos is going to pick him apart in the feet. He's going to crack him with his fucking hands. So, I don't like what I've seen from this guy, Austin Hubert. If you can get Davi Ramos, if you can get him at the right price, I definitely recommend parlaying him. At this point, you can get Ramos around -500, -475. Honestly, I'm looking into that, maybe throwing a parlay with him. My style, man. I don't discriminate. So some people don't touch fights like this. I'll take free money all day. So I'm looking for something possibly to parlay him with. But expect Davi to win this fight in a dominant fashion. I'm telling you, this guy, he's a good fighter, man. And keep an eye on him moving forward, because we can make money off this guy in a lot of the right situations. So, all right, moving on to the next fight. We got the third fight between these two guys, Charles Oliveira and Nik Lentz. Charles has been looking very good as of recently, man. This guy is one of the best submission guys in the game. I believe he has records for submissions. I'm not even sure if it was for just his division. It might even just be overall in the UFC. This guy just subs guy after guy after guy. He's been around since he was a young buck in the UFC. He's 29 years old now. He's hitting his prime. His wrestling has got better. He's fighting Nik Lentz. Nik Lentz, he's been around the game for a while. This guy, he's getting up there in age. He's a very well-rounded fighter, tough dude. He's 34 years old at this point. American top team fighter. Quick funny story. One time I was hitting a U-turn right over here down the street from my house, right down the street from American top team. I'm bicycle distance from the camp. I'm hitting a U-turn, and the guy's making a right out of the light. I'm hitting a U-turn. We almost get in a car accident. I'm staring at the guy through the window. We're like, what the fuck? Flicking each other off. I recognize his face right away. I'm like, that's fucking Nik Lentz. And then I start thinking, I'm like, yeah, that's right. He's training over here at Top Team. I get behind him. What do you think? He has Minnesota license plates. I'm like, I knew it. That was it. I knew it. I was like, oh, 100%. That's Nik Lentz. He's from Minnesota. So I thought that was funny. I was trying actually to catch up to him. He ended up kind of speeding up and turning into a neighborhood before I can get close to him. I was obviously not to start shit. I was going to be like, hey, man, I'm a fan, this and that, but didn't get that chance. But, Nik Lentz is a tough fighter, man. So I just don't think he's going to win this fight. I think Charles Oliveira, as I was stating, is just getting better and better each time he steps in there, hitting his prime. His wrestling is getting better. His striking has always been decent. He has good Muay Thai, so that that's sharpening up as well. And I know some of their past fights have been close, but if there's ever a time where Charles is going to just kind of, progress Lentz and just, surpass him, and it's not even going to be as close of a fight, I think it's right now. 29 years old, Lentz is creeping up on 35. Oliveira's on a 4-fight win streak. He won 5 of his last 6 fights. Like I said, Oliveira's a tough dude, man. He's taking out notable guys too, man. Clay Guidas, Christos Giagos, Jim Miller, David Tamor. David Tamor was a guy I was very high on. Actually, I thought Tamor would have probably won that fight. And Oliveira comes out there and gets the anaconda choke. he's a beast. So, the line's up there too. I believe that with the line at this point, yeah, Oliveira's like a minus 350. I don't know. I was thinking about taking him earlier, but with the way the line is now, I don't know if I want to roll the dice on that. So I'll probably just try to sit back and just, enjoy watching this fight take place. So, yeah, but expect Charles to get the victory. All right, up next, we got a big mismatch here, man. We got Vicente Luque taking on Derek Krantz. Derek Krantz has taken this fight on short notice as well. He's been around the block for quite some time, man. 23-10. He's 31 years old. Not overly athletic, man. Really, if you look at his body type, he's not that athletic. He's slow. He's decently well-rounded, but he's not on the level. This guy, Vicente Luque, is a stud, man. I've been watching him, in depth ever since the Ultimate Fighter days. He was on that episode, American Top Team versus the Black Zillions. So, that was crazy. I'll tell you guys a quick story, man. Fucking no bullshit. The owner of the Black Zillions, rest in peace, I forgot his name, he passed away. There was a point in time that I was talking to this girl, just kind of fooling around, and she was dog sitting for this house over in Parkland, Florida. Big ass house. I go over there, we're messing around. She's like, oh, you like that mixed martial arts stuff? This guy, whatever his name is, you can look him up. Bald guy, he was in the show, always trying to start shit with the Top Team guy. She's like, oh, do you know this guy? Meanwhile, this is while the show was going down. So this is what I'm really getting to know this guy as I'm in his house. I'm laughing my ass off, banging this chick all throughout his house. But, I heard he ended up having a heart attack or something, man. Rest in peace to that guy. I got respect for anyone that's tried to push the mixed martial arts game forward in any type of way. But, I'm telling you, where I live, man, it's a lot of mixed martial arts stuff going around, man. A lot of camps around here in South Florida, a lot of fighters. So, luckily I've been able to experience some funny stories like this. But, Vicente Luque, though, man, he was part of the Black Zillions, and he was on that show, and he was tearing people up on that show as a young dude. Now he's, about 29 years old, I believe. 27 years old, man. He's young, and he's looking better every time he gets in there. Very well-rounded. This guy will, he'll destroy Derek on the feet. If it goes to the mat, he'll sub him. He wins this fight wherever this fight goes. If you were looking for another leg in a parlay, maybe with the Ramos, this might be the play that you want to mix it with. Vicente and Davi might be a very solid parlay. Check what you can get it at and what it pays. But if you want to put a little bit of money in your account, this is not a bad avenue whatsoever. So, all right, we got one more fight that not too interested in, and then we got the co-main and main event, which will be exciting to break down, man. Looking forward to those fights very much so. So before we get to that, let's go. We got Megan Anderson taking on Felicia Spencer. This girl Spencer, she's 6-0. Anderson 9-3. You guys are familiar with Anderson, tall chick, man, 6 foot, 145 pounder. A lot of people were high on her striking. In her last 2 fights, she takes on Holly Holm. That was a fight she got absolutely destroyed in. I made a lot of money on that fight as well. I went big on Holly. Holly just exploited her wrestling game. And Megan was looking decent on the feet up until that point. So I do believe that she's capable on the feet. In her last fight, she had that toe kick to the eye of Kat Zingano. To be honest, I think if that didn't happen and that fight played out, I think Kat would have got a lot of takedowns and would have smashed her, which I actually lost some money on that fight. I had money on Kat, and I was actually very pissed off about that. If they ever ran that back, I would take Kat in a minute. I think Kat would just show it. She would have got takedowns and smashed her, like I said. But so now she's taking on this girl Felicia. Felicia, she's only 5'6", so there's a big difference in height. She's 6-0. A lot of submissions on her resume. The girls that she's beating, they're not shit, man. So it's hard for me to say, oh yeah, she's 6-0. And from what I've seen from Anderson, the way that her wrestling game is, you gotta fade her or whatnot. I don't know, man. This girl is 5'6". The reach advantage for Anderson is going to be ridiculous. I have a feeling this fight's going to end up taking place on the feet. I really do. I think Anderson's been working her takedown defense, and I don't think this girl Spencer's takedowns are all that special. So, once this fight takes place on the feet, Anderson's reach advantage is going to be ridiculous, as I stated. And her striking is decent, too. So, I got to lean Anderson to win this fight. I thought about putting money on this, but as of now, I haven't put anything on it. But yeah, I think Anderson's going to win this fight. All right, here we go. The co-main event of the night. I know I said earlier the Grant Dawson fight was one of the fights I was most heavily anticipating. I would have to say that actually this fight is. So I got this fight first and then the Dawson fight second. I like this guy Ian Heinisch a lot. Like what I've seen from him in LFA and Dana White's Contender Series. He's taking on Antonio Carlos Jr., Carlos Jr., a very, very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. He's a aggressive, tough dude. I do feel he's a little bit overhyped, a little bit overrated because of how dominant his Jiu-Jitsu can be in certain times. But if you're able to stuff the takedown, keep the fight on the feet, this guy, Shoeface, that's his nickname, Shoeface, this guy's been knocked out by Daniel Kelly on the feet. He lost the decision to Patrick Cummins where he was taken down. And who has he beat, really? Look at who he's beat. Eddie Truck Gordon, Eric Spicely, Jack Marshman, Tim Bosch. Really like C-level type of fighters. This guy, Heinisch, is a very athletic dude. He's been wrestling since he was young, so he has a good wrestling pedigree. I know some things that a lot of people are worried about is that this guy, Heinisch, has really only been fighting professional mixed martial arts for the last 4 years. And he's 30 years old, so he got in the game late. But he's a stud, man. This guy's a stud, man. He's athletic, deceptively athletic. This guy's busting out backflips in the cage, man. His footwork is very nice. His striking's underrated. And his wrestling's underrated. I think overall this guy's an underrated fighter. I made money on him in his last fight. He went into that fight, as the underdog against Cesar Ferreira. He won that fight. I believe that fight might have even been taking place. It was in South America, I think Argentina or whatnot. So, you had to give the hometown edge to Cesar, but it didn't matter. Ian went down there and he took care of business. And this guy, Ian, bro, he has an X factor, man. This guy, he's been locked up, man. If you guys should look up his story. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but this guy was a wild dude, man. Pushing drugs, left the country. There was a warrant for his arrest or whatnot. Ended up pushing drugs over in Spain and Europe, got arrested over there or something like that, got expedited back to the States, did some time in Rikers, was beefing with the Latin Kings, ended up getting transferred back to Colorado. Crazy shit, man. Rikers, it's funny too, man. My pops actually did some time in Rikers as well. My family's from up there in Queens. But, this guy, Heinisch, man, I like what I see, man. I like his demeanor when he talks. I like, he's a tough dude, man. This guy, you could tell he's a real warrior, and he expects to fucking beat anybody that he steps in the octagon with. He does not step foot in there expecting, I might lose. This guy, he fucking goes in there to take people's heads off, and if at the least bit, he goes in there to dominate. He expects to dominate, point blank. So, And this guy Carlos has a big head too, man. Don't be surprised if Heinisch cracks him in that big shoe face, because you could definitely see how he got that nickname. And his face really does look like a shoe. So, but Heinisch has to avoid the jiu-jitsu game, man. He has to avoid it. Yeah, I want him to stuff the takedowns, keep this fight on the feet, maybe mix in a little bit of takedowns very safely at the end of rounds to seal them off. But I don't want Ian playing around in his guard. I was able to get Ian at a plus 175. I jumped on this about 8-9 days ago. You know, I've been just fucking brewing this bet, man. Just sitting, like, just brewing up inside, ready to see this fight happen. So I think he's going to pull it off. And at the very least bit, man, when you're getting odds like this, plus 175, I think at this point it's like a plus 155 or whatnot, how do you not take the shot on this? Because this fight, you want to argue back and forth, okay, Antonio Carlos should be the favorite, this and that. At the very least bit, this fight's a 50-50. And when you're getting odds like that, man, you have to take the chance. You have to jump on that opportunity. But again, I'll say it one more time. I think Ian Heinisch is a better fighter just straight up anyway. And I think he's going to win this fight. So I'm pumped to see this fight. Definitely will be looking forward to seeing this fight take place. All right, here we go. We got the main event of the evening. We got Rafael dos Anjos taking on Kevin, the Motown Phenom Lee. I'm excited for this fight. They put a nice little main event here together. And, Dos Anjos, he's coming off 2 losses, but no shame in either of those losses. He's going up in weight to welterweight, taking on a guy like Kamaru Usman, the champion, Colby Covington, the soon-to-be champion. I know some of you guys hate Colby, man, but I think this guy, he puts on a pace, man, and his wrestling credentials are very good, man. He's a tough dude. And I'm just busting balls, but I'm excited to see that fight take place in the future, Colby and Kamaru. But like I was saying, man, Dos Anjos loses to those 2 guys. No shame in that. Before that fight, looked amazing against Robbie Lawler. Took care of Neil Magny, Tarek Safadine in his first welterweight fight. And then before that, he loses to Tony Ferguson, Eddie Alvarez, 2 of the greatest lightweights of all time. And then, before that, 5-fight win streak against a bunch of big names. That's when he was on his title run. I mean, Dos Anjos is a true stud. He really is a true stud. Kevin Lee, in my opinion, he's an overrated fighter. I really do. I really feel that. I think Kevin Lee is an overrated fighter. He looked horrible in his last fight against Al. Al just, out-cardioed him, just showed him up in the late rounds, picked him apart on the feet. Lee outgrinded Edson Barbosa in that fight, and it was a hair away from getting knocked out from that spinning heel kick. Wobble did the chicken dance and all that, but he toughed it out, and he did get the TKO finish in the 5th round, I believe it was. Yeah. But Ferguson just absolutely dismantled Lee. And if you look at the guys that Lee's beat, man, they're just okay. I mean, Efrain Escudero, Jake Matthews, Magomed Mustafayev, Trinaldo. The Chiesa fight, a lot of people argued if that was an early stoppage. I would like to see that fight ran back. He's been knocked out by Leonardo Santos. That was a nasty knockout in the feet. Between that knockout and seeing how he wobbled from the Edson heel kick, that Lee can be put out. I mean, you could see that possibility. And Rafael dos Anjos, man, he's a stud. I believe that. And I think you can get him at some great value right now because his stock's a little bit low coming off those 2 losses. But like I said, there's no shame in those 2 losses. So I got Dos Anjos to win this fight. It actually is going to be my 3rd play as of now. That will be one of my plays. I'll be posting that. I'm going to take Rafael dos Anjos to win this fight. I think he'll keep this fight on the feet. I think after wrestling guys like Colby and Kamaru, I think Kevin Lee is going to be no match for his wrestling takedown defense because maybe he gets a few here and there, but this is a 5-round fight. I think Dos Anjos he's been grinding in there with the cream of the crop in the welterweight division. So Lee is really a natural 155er. I mean, I know he doesn't like that weight cut anymore. Maybe you want to say he's more of a natural 160, 165er, but that division doesn't exist. So, I mean, he really is a 155er at this point in the game. He's not I don't believe he's a welterweight fighter, so I don't know exactly where these guys are going to weigh in. I know there was a rumor that they were going to mix it up and make an agreement to weigh in at 165. I don't know if they'll do that or not. Either way, I just don't see it having a factor. I don't see it making any difference. I just think Dos Anjos is the better fighter, and I think Dos Anjos will really, really take advantage of Lee on the feet. I think that when this fight takes place in the feet, I think Dos Anjos is a much more well-rounded striker. And I think he's going to pull this fight off. He's going to get the W. So I think he's going to put some more money in all of our guys' accounts. For those of you guys that take this bet with me. I hope you guys do. For those of you guys that are on Lee and are expecting Lee to grind Dos Anjos out like Kamaru and Colby did, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Because I'm telling you, Lee's wrestling is overrated. It really is overrated. And I think he's an overrated fighter. So just keep that in mind. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up UFC Fight Night 152, taking place in Rochester, New York. You guys already know how the teller does it. Went 3 for 3 last week. So far, I got 3 bets already taking place this upcoming Saturday. 2 of them being underdogs. Another one being a very, very close, almost a pick'em type fight. So, for those of you guys that try to talk shit in the past about certain fights I pick, favorites, this and that, don't worry about what I do. Just watch the units keep going up and, pay attention to this fight card. Like I said, we got 2 underdogs and almost a pick'em. So, watch me go 3 for 3 or at the least bit 2 for 3, and it'll still be a profitable weekend. If you guys you have any questions about particular fights, comment below. Message me on Instagram. I do have another possible bet that I'm going to be putting together. It might be a 2-fight parlay. For those of you guys that are interested, DM me on Instagram. As I stated earlier, man, my Instagram, they took my old one out. So my new one is MMA Fortune Teller with the underscore at the end of it now. Look out. Go hop on Instagram. Shoot me a follow. Please, man, if you guys are listening, subscribe to the channel. Always much appreciated. And enjoy these fights, man. The teller signing out.
The teller.